I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, Messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for May the 20th, 2025. Before we get into our material, I do have a few announcements. The first one, if you will go to the website messianicapologetics.net, this was just added this morning. So see the articles tab immediately underneath it, OIM News. You can click there and you can access all of the back issues for Outreach Israel News. And there you have it right there, the May 2025 Non-Jewish Believers Navigating the Messianic Jewish Movement. Now, this information is definitely accessible at Outreach Israel Ministries, but many people are unable to make that connection. So I thought it prudent to just go ahead and, under articles, add a listing of all of the back issues of Outreach Israel News. So now you should be able to find things a little better. Okay, also, the teaching schedule for the Messiah 2025 conference in Grantham, Pennsylvania went live yesterday, and there's this fellow right here, Wednesday at 10 a.m., John McKee, who will be teaching on when are we focusing on kingdom work while waiting for the return of the Messiah. So that's a presentation I pretty much already have put together. And the Messiah Conference is the last week of June, first week of July. So we're going to be attending. This will be my 8th conference. And I know that I've met many of you as a result of our families and ministries involvement with the MJAA IAMCS. So as we get closer to the time, I will be able to give you some more information regarding what we're going to be doing with Messianic Insider or not. Are we just going to be able to have McKee Moment shorts throughout the time we are away? But regardless of what ends up being the case, we will definitely keep you up to speed and up to date as best we can. All right, our theology roundup and all of the links, all of the information I've gone through, they will be available for you to click on, read, watch when this episode is archived later today on Messianicapologetics.net. So if you will go back to the Messianic Apologetics website, Messianicapologetics.net, here you see the FAQs tab. Immediately underneath it is a tab for Volume 2, which are FAQ entries I've been putting together since 2022. We don't know when this is going to be completed. There is an open book file. When it gets too fat, that's when we'll be thinking about publishing it. Scroll down to the letter P. These are all in alphabetical order. This is going to be a very unique, but I think important discussion. And here you'll see privileged perspectives apparent. Click on that and a PDF file will open on privileged perspectives apparent. Let's get that enlarged a little bit. I have encountered many people in my Messianic experience who believe that they have special information or perspectives. Much of this actually manifests in people thinking that they are entitled to just talk or say anything they want about various matters, offering no references or documentation to what they say. Can you please help. How many of you have been in this kind of a situation, whether it is at an Oneg fellowship mealtime, at a Torah study, a Bible study, some congregational function? People start opening their mouths and saying things about whatever the blank they think, and you don't know where some of this information comes from. You've never heard this point of view before. And not only is it new to you, but some of it sounds a little too good to be true. I think we all, at some point or another, have had this experience in the Messianic sphere of influence. It is fair to say that a great number of us, in our experience with people within the broad Messianic sphere of influence, think that we have some kind of we have some kind of privileged perspective. On the one hand, it does need to be noted that being involved with matters involving support of Israel, the salvation of the Jewish people, seeing many non-Jewish believers embrace a conscious faith heritage in the scriptures of Israel, and most especially heralding the return of Yeshua the Messiah to planet Earth, is a great privilege. At the same time, this does not at all justify any one of us who is an active participant within things messianic to act in an arrogant or superior manner to others, as though we are the only ones in the worldwide body of Messiah with some corner on the truth with a capital T. The legacy of what has largely become the independent Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement over the past several decades has become highly stigmatized by an entire host of false and aberrant teachings. Because of this, many of us cannot even employ the term Hebrew or Hebraic roots anymore to stress matters such as Hebrew language study, Tanakh, Old Testament study, or examination of Second Temple Jewish literature, as was easily the case in the 1990s and 2000s. These include, but are not limited to, denial of the divinity of Yeshua, denial of the inspiration of various apostolic or New Testament writings, treating polygamy or plural marriage as being legitimate for Messiah followers, embracing flat earth, and hyper-speculation on the Nephilim of Genesis 6, among other matters. While it is true that each one of those subjects and various others doubtlessly deserves some attention, the independent Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement is not one known for facilitating stability. Rather, an entire host of highly fringe and controversial subjects are sensationalized by individuals desiring to gain a quick following and become a household name of a sort. To be certain, the Messianic Jewish movement has great concern about the independent Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement and the division and confusion it frequently brings to its congregations and conference level events. Still, this does not mean that parts of Messianic Judaism are not influenced by various sensational voices either. No one is immune from the effects of people who think they can just open their mouths in order to be a man/woman/person of influence. Today's Messianic movement does have a unique mission and purpose, and as such, many are of the sincere conviction that the Lord has given many people within our faith community unique perspectives and information on what he intends to do with us in the future. What is the best way for us to deal with the unique work we widely believe that God has in store for us? A steadfast requirement seen within the Holy Scriptures is that truth be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. Deuteronomy 17:6, 19:15, Matthew 18:16, 2 Corinthians 13:1, 1 Timothy 5:19, Hebrews 10:28. Many people in the independent Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement who have seen their influence grow into the tens of thousands or more have often been able to do so by presenting various teachings which are not only sensational, but also overly simplistic. They have not watched their mouths. Many claim they have been told by the Lord that they do not have to provide any evidence or documentation for their claims. This can make the work of a ministry like Outreach Israel and Messianic Apologetics quite difficult, as people often ask us where this or that teaching they have heard actually originated. The very reason why a number of our publications and commentaries are so large and hefty is so we can demonstrate to skeptical persons that we have indeed thought through the many components of our unique Messianic perspective, not making things up. What are some of the sources of information which we all need to know are out there in the world of ideas? If you were a government agency determining some policy in particular, there are three main sources you would likely consider. Number one, open source. Material widely available to the general public in media such as newspapers, magazines, books, radio, television, websites. Number two, diplomatic. Information exchange between national embassies and civil servants, often using unofficial back channels. And number three, secret. Information for your eyes or ears only, collected from agents on the ground who have often infiltrated top secret installations or caches. The considerable bulk of what a ministry like Outreach Israel and Messianic Apologetics does concerns issues and data which are all available as open source. While some of these issues and subjects are inconvenient and uncomfortable for many people across the Messianic movement to sort through, they are hardly hidden. The reference sources and tools we use, while not always available to everyone free of cost, are likewise hardly hidden. As a family involved in the Messianic movement, we do have access to what might be considered diplomatic information, as we have spent many years getting to know and be acquainted with different leaders and teachers in person. Attending major conference events is an excellent way to get to learn about the complex personalities of some of the pioneers of Messianic Judaism, various early controversies and divisions, and decisions which were made in the 1970s to the present, often behind closed doors, yet affecting almost everyone within the broad Messianic sphere of influence to our present day. We have had to be careful with things we have heard spoken to us in confidence, and some of the memoirs we have read before publication. But we are definitely aware of many matters involving major leaders of long standing. The independent Hebrew or Hebraic roots movement is far more influenced by secret information than Messianic Judaism tends to be, being highly swayed by perspectives usually considered to be part of the alt-right, and can be surrounded by a great deal of rumor and innuendo. For sure, not all of the issues or subjects labeled as alt-right are isolated to sectors of Hebrew roots, as many evangelical Christian prophecy ministries also focus on some of the same matters in order to gain a following. And also to be noted is how there are some legitimate questions to be posed about matters involving a deep state and or various secret societies, the Vatican, NASA, extraterrestrials, UFOs, UAPs, world health, and political machinations, just to name a few. Yet, how much of the information and talk one may encounter regarding these matters is accurate? How many people have utterly discredited themselves by becoming engulfed in fringe misinformation from the alt-right, much of which can be associated with anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust denial? Many lack the patience to see various interesting or intriguing matters which are talked about in alt-right sources be given the necessary time to play out as either accurate or inaccurate. Some cannot wait for a number of secret issues to become open source issues, and indeed find themselves speaking presumptuously. If one focuses too highly on any of these matters of the world, then one's attention can be focused off of the two most important things where believers should be expelling their energy. Number one, making sure that the lost of planet Earth have repented of their sins and know Yeshua. And number two, preventing people from committing apostasy against the God of the Bible. While we should be concerned with what is happening in our world and hardly remain ignorant, how do the affairs of the kingdom of the world align with the breaking in of the kingdom of heaven and the gospel assignments that the redeemed in Messiah have? There are compelling matters for sure talked about at the diplomatic and secret levels, which do eventually come out into the open. Yeshua himself indeed taught. But there is nothing covered up that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. Accordingly, whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light, and whatever you have whispered in the inner rooms will be proclaimed upon the housetops. Luke 12:2-3, New American Standard. As we get closer and closer to the Messiah's return, the people of God are said to be those who will possess great wisdom and insight. Those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Daniel 12:3, New American Standard. Today, there are many theological and spiritual issues which may be labeled as open source, which are highly controversial and needed to be addressed yesterday, i.e., the various matters of woke, deconstruction, ex-evangelical affirming. Many of us have the information, materials, tools, and temperament to see that these open source issues are dealt with properly in our various ministry venues. Today's Messianic community has plenty to keep itself fully occupied and effectual in the event that some issues, which may be secret at present, do eventually come out into the open at some future moment. And I hope some of this discussion on privileged perspectives, people who think they've got insider information because they spend a lot of time on social media, or they think, well, I'm Messianic, or I'm Hebrew roots more likely, and I can say whatever I want and I don't have to provide documentation. Hopefully some of the things we've just sorted through and reviewed are helpful for you, because yeah, there are things which happen in secret, behind closed doors. Yeshua even said that there will be things which occur in secret, which will be proclaimed upon the housetops eventually. So it is important that we monitor things, we not be ignorant of them, but we don't need to be caught opening our mouths and saying things without providing documentation or without recognizing that, hey, information is still being released. We're just having an acknowledgement that the subject is out there. And that's a lot of what we do in our news roundup, which we conduct after the theology roundup, because we have to recognize how current events news, whether it's in the world at large or in the world of spiritual things, the religious world, news and current events change, and they are all time sensitive. And some of the developments we have seen yesterday can change tomorrow. And all of this is supposed to get us to plug into the Lord, to plug into his Holy Spirit, give us wisdom, knowledge, insight. How do we sort through some of these different matters? Okay, so there is a lot of news, and all of the stories we're going through, you will be able to access the links when this episode is archived at messianicapologetics.net. All right, our first story is straight from the White House, President Trump. From yesterday, May the 19th, just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. And so you can read his post here. President Trump is trying to work through a ceasefire, a negotiated peace between Russia and Ukraine. He wants to see the United States in a dynamic trading relationship with Russia and Ukraine. He wants the various European allies and partners to also be involved with this. There's the talk, as we're also going to recognize a little further on, that maybe the Vatican with the new Pope can be able to help negotiate a peace between Russia and Ukraine. Things are getting very interesting. Even if you did not believe in some kind of a future end time scenario with a dynamic world leader, this idea of peace through strength and commerce, which President Trump is trying to enact, is very intriguing. And while I don't specifically see anything prophetic about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, other than wars and rumors of wars and 5,000 people dying every week needs to stop, peace through strength and commerce. So we continue to monitor things, and we continue to pray that some kind of an honorable settlement can be reached. Okay, our next story. This is something which came across my X feed, posting from Ben M. Freeman, where he expresses his opinion: the Jews of America are no longer safe. I'm devastated for them, and I'm desperately hoping they understand the threat they are facing. The post-Holocaust golden age of guilt-based acceptance of Jews is over. Now, to be sure, there are going to be people who have different opinions or different approaches to the Jewish community in the United States, North America, the West. Here you've got someone saying that, look, effectively, the Holocaust was 80 years ago. Jews wanting to tap on that kind of a guilt-based acceptance, these are his words, not mine, is over, because once you get 3-4 generations away from World War II, the Shoah, the rebirth of Israel in the Middle East, people lose that kind of memory. You know, when I was in high school, and I would be my grandparents, my parents, my generation, so 2 to 3 generations from the World War II period. We were talking about World War II, rise of Nazism, Hitler, the Pacific Theater. We were definitely taught about the Holocaust and the dangers of Nazism, the dangers of anti-Semitism. I have no clue what they're learning in history class today. I just saw that my AP US history teacher, Mr. Bruck, retired this year from McKinney High School. So, yeah, it's been a while. How many people are learning about World War II, the rise of Nazism, the causes behind the Shoah? I don't know. And hey, we just note these kinds of opinions, and hopefully in our Messianic congregations and synagogues, we can do a better job at communicating some of this history. Our next story, this is from the New York Post, May the 19th, yesterday. Experts have issued a warning about a potential mega tsunami that could sweep away entire communities with its massive waves. Alaska, Hawaii, and the West Coast face an ongoing threat due to how close they are to disaster zones, and the West Coast just received a renewed warning. We did have some discussion about this yesterday. Now it's in more mainstream media. How serious, how severe? Look, I think some of these threats have been around a lot longer than human scientists have been recording them, but they affect places like the west coast of North America, which now are heavily populated, whereas centuries ago they were not. From End Time Headlines, this is kind of interesting because yesterday on Messianic Insider, we talked about Jewish tradition. We talked about a desire on the part of many for a more formal style of religion. That's why Anglicanism, Eastern Orthodoxy, Catholicism are seeing a huge increase in their numbers, those who want more of ritual worship. Here you have from End Time Headlines. It's a war. Excuse me. The headline is Modern Worship Music Has Entered a Dangerous Drift into Progressive Praise. Indeed, a lot of people see a lot of the contemporary worship music out there, and they're like, is this rock music? Is this actual praise music? Because unfortunately, if you come from at least a Protestant tradition, which used hymnals and, coming from the Methodist Church, of course, the main songs we would sing would have been from Charles Wesley. That's dead, non-spontaneous religion. We want, something more. This is End Time Headlines opinion. It's a warning to every generation that when we lose our grounding in the Word of God, we lose far more than clarity. We lose our very identity. Worship is not immune from this erosion. In fact, it may be the front line where the spiritual battle over truth is most quietly fought and dangerously lost. We do know that the Messianic community, and I mean this with a lot of love, does sing a lot of contemporary Christian praise music. Anything involving traditional Christian hymns, if you come from an evangelical background, you got to listen to that on your own, at home, in private. But there are more traditional, customary Jewish songs, which definitely can create a sense of reverence, which I know a lot of us would like to see, because that desire for a more structured worship, not all of this quasi-charismatic stuff, that's the reason why so many are looking to Anglicanism, Catholicism. So I thought that was an interesting story to note. From the New York Post yesterday, and this concerns the ongoing questions of former President Biden and his health. Former President Biden's heartbreaking prostate cancer diagnosis, indeed, we would not wish that on anyone, has drawn renewed attention to his 2022 slip-up. And this is a video which is in mainstream news sources, has been circulating a lot, in which he claimed to have had cancer during a public speech. Biden's alarming comments came during a speech about emissions from oil refineries near his childhood home in Claymont, Delaware, and which he appeared to blame for his cancer. So a lot of questions are being raised about how long did they know that Joe Biden had a health issue, not just with his cognitive abilities, but this whole prostate thing. From the X channel Catholic Arena, peace negotiations begin between Russia and Ukraine, with U.S. President Donald Trump saying that Pope Leo XIV and the Vatican are very interested in hosting the negotiations. One of the things I know we should all have learned by now regarding this Russia-Ukraine situation is that things get proposed, ceasefire gets suggested, the momentum begins, and things just kind of fall flat. Nothing happens. So what could happen with the involvement of the Vatican? At this point, we don't know. But like so many people, we want to see this conflict end in an honorable way. From Newsmax, May the 19th. Donald Trump Jr. wants accountability after Sunday's announcement that former President Joe Biden has prostate cancer. And indeed, the question is going to be, how long was it known that he had an issue, and why are we just now finding out about it when it is at stage 4 and it's metastasized to his bones? Surely someone knew about this before, especially as the president, the vice president of the United States, has a physician on hand all the time. You have the best physicians America can offer you, the best military physicians the country can offer you. And we're just now finding out about it. Most are not convinced. All right, here's an interesting story from May the 19th. My Charisma, whether you like charisma or not, this is the one publication which influences and affects more Messianic people than I know some of us would like. But here's a story. Is the barrier between heaven and earth breaking? Experts warn of supernatural signs. So, yeah, there are a lot of questions being asked about what's happening in the world at large, what's happening interdimensionally, perhaps. Now, if you scroll down, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about this or that. But here, topping the list, a strange glowing aerial anomaly known as the plasmoid orb. There's supernatural interference in the days of Noah with the sons of God and the fallen angels. We see through the book of Revelation, we see demons being unleashed, we see other angels interacting with humanity. So there are a lot of people who think, in this case, we are seeing the birth pains as it relates to the beast system being established and implemented and the technology coming into play. So what are these various phenomenon? Are we dealing with the Nephilim? Are we dealing with experiments which people shouldn't be conducting? The conclusion is the increase in both sightings and serious government interest in UFOs has led many to believe something more than technological is happening. So I know that a lot of people in the Messianic community don't easily handle questions of the greater universe, other civilizations, UFOs, UAPs. The younger you are, the more affected you have been by science fiction. But once a resource like Charisma picks it up, it means that we can definitely discuss it as Messianic people. And we just file this information away. We definitely know that there is a multidimensional universe, well, not universe, but there are multiple dimensions of being. Certainly our universe and the dimension of heaven where God, angels, demons, Satan reside. And so, yeah, there are people who think that the multidimensional barrier can be pierced with technology. And who knows? We're just going to factor this away, file this away, and continue to monitor. Okay, from open source intel. This got a lot of traction yesterday. The Washington Post claims that Trump allies have warned Israel, if you don't end the war, we will abandon you. And when this episode is archived, I've got a link to the Washington Post article. You may have to sign up with the Washington Post in order to read it. I was not interested in that, but this claim has been picked up by a lot of different news agencies. It would not surprise me in the least with the new Trump administration having an America First agenda, certainly wanting to cut a lot of wasteful spending, a lot of foreign aid, except that going to Israel has already been cut from the budget, that there are those fiscal conservatives who want to say, hey, why are we not spending money on all these other people? We're still spending money on Israel. Can Israel, get this conflict over? We need to get this situation under control, and it's affecting global markets. I have no doubt that there are people in the Trump administration who are thinking along those lines. It also has to be noted, whether we want to admit it or not, that there are people in the Trump administration who are America first, meaning America only. And they think that Israel has got too much influence. AIPAC has got too much influence over the U.S. government. Certainly, you've seen people like in the Congress, people like Thomas Massie or even Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're not always friends of Israel and the Jewish people. But we file this away and we wait and see what's going to happen. A lot of questions are being raised about how long this conflict between Israel and Hamas is going to be permitted to last. And along with that, this is from End Time Headlines. This is yesterday, May the 19th. UK, France, and Canada threaten sanctions if Israel continues military action in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Monday that the military intends to take control of the entire Gaza Strip. The operation began with intense airstrikes last week, followed by an expanded ground incursion on Sunday. Okay, this is not the only story right now involving the situation in Gaza. Okay, slight change. The New York Post yesterday, May the 19th, President Trump questioned Monday how doctors did not diagnose former President Joe Biden with advanced prostate cancer until after he had left office, accusing former White House staff of not telling the facts. Indeed, this is not the last time we're going to hear about this Joe Biden story. And why now? But again, we do not wish this kind of cancer on anyone, and we pray for the Biden family that there can be a quick and swift recovery. So back to the Israel-Gaza situation, Benjamin Netanyahu responds to France, Britain, and Canada. This is from the channel Vivid on X. By asking Israel to end a defensive war for our survival before Hamas terrorists on our border are destroyed, and by demanding a Palestinian state, the leaders in London, Ottawa, and Paris are offering a huge prize for the genocidal attack on Israel on October the 7th, while inviting more such atrocities. And this concludes with, this is a war of civilization over barbarism. Israel will continue to defend itself by just means until total victory is achieved. And while there are varied stories regarding how this situation is being approached, this was from open source intel right before we went live. I saw this on my feed. EU to review ties with Israel over Gaza aid, says Kaja Kallas. EU Foreign Minister Kaja Kallas said, today the EU Foreign Ministers meeting will discuss the proposal by the Dutch Foreign Minister to review the association agreement with Israel. The Israeli government's decision to allow a small amount of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip is a drop in the ocean. And along with that, I did see that the British government is prepared to, they've called in the Israel ambassador to the UK, and they're looking at new sanctions to impose upon Israel now. So the nations of the world are wanting to know, at least, when do you plan on concluding this Gaza conflict? And how are people going to be responding to this? I sincerely hope that while you have been praying as a Messianic believer for Israel's victories over its enemies, that you also pray that these things can be concluded as quickly as humanly possible. Is now the time to see the nations of the world come against Israel, or is this just going to be a big bump along the road? We wait and see. We do pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We pray for the safety of the IDF. We also pray for the salvation of those in Gaza, because only an encounter with the living Yeshua is what's going to solve this whole problem. That's the only thing that's going to solve this. And I think sometimes we don't pay attention enough to that as Messianic people. We so want Israel to be preserved. We so want Israel to be protected. We can't forget to pray for the salvation of Israel's enemies. And there are a lot of things happening we continue to pray about, we continue to monitor, and I think for a lot of us, we've got more unanswered questions than answered questions. But the reason we have Messianic Insider every day now is to have that ongoing conversation about theology, about the news, and we just don't focus on one thing or another thing. because the big focus of a ministry like Outreach Israel and Messianic Apologetics is to facilitate stability in our increasingly more complicated times. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and donations toward all of our ministry efforts. You can give online at outreachisrael.net/support. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.